All right, you guys, let's dive into the crazy world of PTSD. It is a beast. There is so much to know, there's so much to tell. I just want you guys to kind of understand in your head how it works from the initial claim all the way to increased claims. All right, let's get started. I hope you guys get a better understanding of it. If I've jacked anything up or I didn't explain it well, just let me know and I will definitely answer your questions. All right, with that being said, let's get started. All right, so PTSD. I want to go over the types of PTSD. Generally, you guys just put PTSD and you don't annotate, hey, I'm claiming combat, I'm claiming fear, so I want to go into that. All right, so this right here is, I will put the link down in the description box. This is just standard on va.gov. This is the Bible, and this is the law, 38 CFR, and that you guys should be studying this. If you really, really want to get to know your claims, you need to be studying this. All right, so the first type of PTSD you guys can file is combat. So what does combat mean? It means that basically, hey, you guys saw combat, right? And how do you prove that? So there are different ways to prove that you were in combat. But before I get into that, I want to go over the rest. Then you've got fear of hostile military or terrorist activity. You experienced something, you witnessed something, so you saw an IED, you saw and the enemy, anything that really messed up your psychological thought process on your life because of something that you saw or experienced. Nothing to do with combat. Combat is combat. If you can't prove it, you can't prove it, but most of you guys that were in combat 100% can prove it. With the exception of my Vietnam veterans, and don't get me started because it constantly pisses me off. All right, so again, just going down, they give examples of exposure to hostile military or terrorist activity. So IEDs, if you saw or knew a buddy that got blown up, unfortunately, incoming rockets, mortars, small arm fires, attacks upon friendly aircraft. So if you were ATC and you saw, a boxcar or whatever plane that you were talking to got blown up. Then it goes into non-combat events. So a non-combat event is a specific event other than the combat, other than enemy or fear of hostile military. So this is going to be, maybe you were on, you became active for National Guard and to help clean up with, any of the hurricanes. If when I was stationed in Florida, we had a lot of hurricanes and we would have to evacuate. If you were a doctor and you saw anything inside the hospital, a nurse, anything, burn ward is huge because of how egregious the burn wards are. Graves registration is massive for my Vietnam veterans who, I know a lot of Vietnam veterans that were on just National Guard orders, and because they hid all the records, they basically did not put it on your DD-214 that you were in Graves registration. So this is a massive one for my Vietnam veterans. Then witnessing the death or injury of another person that wasn't caused by the enemy. If you did witness, one of your buddies dying, but you weren't in combat, then this would go up to fear of hostile or military terrorist. So the actual or threatened death or serious injury of or other threat to one's physical integrity, not caused by the enemy. So a ship sinking, the explosion, a plane crash. A lot of my Navy guys, if you guys saw a plane crash, if someone fell off the boat, anything like that. Friendly fire that occurs on a gunnery range. So a lot of my military guys that are policemen, maybe firefighters, if you guys saw death, if you guys saw someone get shot because they messed up with their gun at the gun range, anything like that. So this just goes in to tell you guys what the VA considers the main distinction between a combat and a non-combat stressor is that the non-combat stressor must always be corroborated with credible supporting evidence. The veteran's lay statement, in the absence of any other credible evidence, cannot serve as the evidence for verification of the stressor. This is where a lot of you guys get screwed because you're saying that you had a non-combat stressor. Let's say that you were a military policeman and you saw someone get shot. And all you do is you write your personal statement on this this 21-0781, and this is what is mandated for all PTSD claims. And you just say, on duty, saw a civilian or saw a service member get shot. Well, according to this, where'd it go? Sorry, you guys. Okay, so according to this is why you guys are getting denied. It could very well have happened, right? We give you, or the VA is going to give you guys the benefit of the doubt. But if all you're writing is this lay statement, it says right here, it cannot serve as evidence. So you've just jacked yourself. You have to provide yourself top cover, and you have to provide this information. If you don't know who the person was, there's going to be records of it. So the date, or as close to, most of you guys can get the year, you're gonna know the base that you were at. And if someone got shot on base, you can bet your sweet ass it's gonna be documented. All right, so although a personal trauma stressor is generally related to a non-combat event, there are special criteria and considerations for claims based on personal traumatic events. So we're going to go into personal traumatic events. All right, so these guys right here, this is super important. When we're talking about combat-related stressors, these right here automatically get you in for your PTSD. So when a veteran has received any of the combat decorations listed below, VA will presume that the veteran engaged in combat with the enemy, unless there is clear and convincing evidence to the contrary. Meaning, let's pretend that you had a Bronze Star medal with a V device, but then later on in your records, you're like, sorry guys, we jacked up, we gave it to you, and it was erroneous. And your DD-214 still says that, but there's evidence of record saying that it never happened. Well, unfortunately, the military screws up all the time. But let's just go over these. If you have Air Force Achievement Medal with a V device, the key word for all of these are V device. See a lot of Bronze Star medals, knowing that you guys went through something, but if it doesn't have that V device, there still needs to be something to corroborate what you're saying. So Air Force Combat Action, the Air Force Commendation Medal with V, the Air Force Cross, Air Medal with V, the Army Commendation Medal with V, Bronze Star with V, a C device denoting combat conditions when affixed to any other award for emeritus service or achievement. Meritorious, sorry. So any of your CAB awards, your combat action ribbon, prior to February of 1969, the Navy Achievement Medal with V device was awarded. So you're looking at your World War I, World War II, Vietnam guys, Korean War guys, combat aircrew insignia, your combat infantry and infantry badge, combat medical badge, your Distinguished Flying Cross, the Service Cross, Fleet Marine Force Combat Operations Insignia, Joint Service Commendation Medal with V device, Medal of Honor, Navy Commendation Medal with V device, Navy Cross, your Parachutist Badge with Combat Jump device, Purple Heart, and Silver Star. So the receipt of one of those decorations that we just talked about is not the only acceptable evidence of engagement in combat. So you don't need this in order to automatically get the PTSD, but this sure as shit is going to get you one if you can prove it. Now, if you guys have one, and specifically speaking, my Vietnam vets, and there's nothing in your records that show that you were in Vietnam, but you have a Purple Heart, you're still going to get it. But for my Vietnam vets specifically, have your, if you're trying to help your parents out, your dad out, your mom out who was in Vietnam, and they don't have their DD-214, you can't find any records, take a friggin' picture of their Purple Heart, take a picture of something to prove that they were there. All right, so then examples of service and areas of hostile military terrorist activity. All right, so this one is more toward my Vietnam veterans. Service along the Korean demilitarized zone, which separates North Korea and South Korea, has been a location of hostile military activity since the Korean War. Any of my blue waters, so a lot of these guys, if you were Army, you were still stationed upon a ship, and this one is a whole nother video, so I'm not going to get too much into it. Excuse me. All right, so also establishing stressor related to fear of hostile military or terrorist activities. These right here, you can concede a stressor when your DD-214 shows service in an area of potential hostile military. So, service personnel records must be requested prior to or concurrently with any necessary examination being ordered as to avoid unnecessary delay. So the VA has to request your personnel records to help corroborate this, because your personnel records are going to 9 times out of 10, let's just say at this time 5 times out of 10 show that you were there. If they didn't, the receipt of military awards are such as, but not limited to, Vietnam Service or Campaign Medal, Kuwait Liberation Medal, Iraq Campaign Medal, and the Afghanistan Campaign Medal is generally being the key word, unfortunately, considered evidence of service in an area of potential hostile military or terrorist activity. So again, if you're trying to help a veteran and you keep getting denied and you find any of these, take a picture. The receipt of military awards such as the National Defense Service Medal, Armed Forces Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, generally does not indicate service in locations that involve exposures to hostile military or terrorist activities, because these are general medals that are just given, right? If the veteran served in an area of potential hostile military or terrorist activity, they would likely have received a more specific medal, meaning one of these. The Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal also does not necessarily indicate that. If you do have one of your LESs that say hostile military zone, that will establish it. All right, the fear-based stressor criteria are not met based on. So if you're saying that you're claiming PTSD because you fear anticipation of the future deployment to a location that's hostile, not going to get you an exam. If you say that your PTSD is fear of learning of the death of another person that occurred in that said area, it's not going to get you an exam. All right, so any of my drone aircraft members, this is automatically conceded. So recent military operations and warfare have involved the expansive use of armed drone aircraft, including but not limited to Predator and Reaper. Concede a stressor when this guidance says concede a stressor, it means, hey man, they're not lying, concede it. It happened. If the veteran's DD-214 or other service records show service as an armed drone aircraft crew member. Service personnel records must be requested prior to concurrently with any necessary examination. All right, so concede a non-combat stressor event if this is what I was talking about before. So documents the veteran's participation in the event, indicates the veteran served in the immediate area and at the particular time in which the stressful event is reported, supports the description of the event. Corroborating evidence of a non-combat related stressor is not restricted solely to service records, but may be obtained from other sources. For by Vietnam, guys, this is super important. APO. So if you are a wife or a daughter, son trying to help out of Vietnam, and you still have letters from when they wrote to you, or your parents saved all these letters, an APO address, you can just simply Google an APO address, and if it puts them here, so it puts them in bases in Asia, Vietnam, Korea, Thailand, Japan, Taiwan, Okinawa, Guam, the Philippines. And then, so this is saying that review the record to include personal and medical records for an APO number written or stamped. So basically this is saying that if you find this, send it, and the RVSR and VSR, so basically the VA has to review the records to see if we can match that up, or the VA can match that up. All right, I want to go to personal trauma. So there's another, you can also file PTSD for personal trauma. There's two types of personal trauma. You have personal trauma, meaning assault, battery, robbery, mugging, stalking, harassment. Military sexual trauma is a subset of this personal trauma, meaning this is a whole nother beast. So let's talk about personal trauma first. So military sexual trauma is different. So when a veteran claims service connection for PTSD, other than conditions based on in-service personal trauma, undertake the development that's necessary for credible evidence. All right, so because a lot of these personal traumatic events are never documented, because let's be real, you guys can't document them. We have to try to figure out how are you going to, what evidence can you give the VA to help support that? So because the many personal traumatic events are not officially reported, the survivors of this type of in-service trauma may find it difficult to produce any sort of evidence, and it may be distressing, this is for MST people or other personal trauma, to participate in the claims process. All right, so when you guys are filling out this 08 or 0781, you need to make sure that you're providing something to be able to research this. Provide a general time frame. You don't have, it's not going to be the specific date because most people don't remember the specific date. You have to at least provide the unit, the base, the installation that you were at, because you're gonna know that. The development activity must work closely with the rating activity. So this means that the people who initially get your claim, the development, which are going to be your VSRs, have to work with the people who are rating your claim if there's not enough information to develop this claim based on personal trauma. All right, so let's see, claims for non-PTSD. All right, so this is more for internal VA. You're gonna have, if it's MST, it's a whole nother subsection. I'm not even gonna get into it. So I'm trying to find out where this is talking about MST. All right, so personal trauma. All right, sufficient evidence to document occurrence of personal trauma stressors. Prior to undertaking any initial or subsequent development this is talking about what the VA is doing to try to corroborate your personal stressor. All right, if any of the following are of record, the original copy of the report. So listen, if you guys have any sort of documentation, did you go to the police? If you went to the police, you want a copy of that. You want your lay statements. You want to find out if you can document, if you're on your EPRs, if it shows that you were the stellar airman or officer and then you slowly started to decline. That is proof. That is just more proof. Any statements from your buddies, any statements from if you reported it 9 times out of 10, you didn't. If it was off base, did you get attacked? Were you at a bar and got punched? There's going to be a police record. So 0781 is your personal statement that has to always be filed with any PTSD. Your lay statements, your military records, any sort of medical records. Did you go off base because you got punched? Did you file a police record because you were stalked? Did you request a change of duty station because you've got some creeper that was stalking you? Or did you request a change of duty station because you were experiencing racism, or people were making fun of you because of your sexual identity? Anything that can help line up what you went through is just more padding, more overhead for this claim. All right, regarding the location of the assignment at the time of the personal traumatic event, information should be sufficient to identify the potential base or installation. Exact dates are not needed, and there is no minimum time frame that must be provided for this stressor. It is only necessary that there is enough information to allow for the research of this event, identification of markers or behavioral changes around the time of and after the event if the evidence is otherwise insufficient to establish the claimed in-service stressor. So this is what I was talking about. Did you, on your EPRs, were you getting all 4s and 5s, and then all of a sudden, after whatever happened, you got in trouble and your EPRs are bad, you're getting in trouble a lot, you're showing up late, you're going to the dock a lot more, just things like that. What breadcrumbs did you leave? Okay, I think I'm going to stop here, and then I am going to go over the PTSD DBQ.